Kandi Burruss and her husband Todd Tucker were enjoying what was supposed to be the perfect night out. After weeks of work, family commitments, and the chaos of their busy lives, they finally got some rare time together. The night was supposed to be about relaxation, laughter, and taking in a Broadway show. They were looking forward to the musical Sunset Boulevard, one of the many shows Kandi had been dying to see. It was a much-needed break for the couple who constantly juggle their high-profile careers with family responsibilities. The evening started, as most evenings out in the city do, filled with excitement and joy. Kandi shared a series of photos on Instagram showcasing their stylish outfits and happy faces. There they were, looking every bit the glamorous couple, ready to take on the night. Todd was dressed to impress, his charm and confidence lighting up the theater as they walked in. For a moment, it seemed like nothing could ruin this rare escape from their hectic schedules. Kandi and Todd were laughing and smiling, exchanging excited whispers as the lights dimmed and the performance began. It was one of those nights when everything seemed perfect. The world outside the theater was forgotten, and all that mattered was the shared experience between them. It felt like a celebration of life, a moment to reflect on how far they had come together. Everything about that night seemed straight out of a fairy tale, a beautiful evening that would be etched in their memories. But what happened next would shake them both to their core. As the evening progressed, Todd suddenly started feeling uncomfortable. At first, it seemed like just a minor issue, perhaps the long day catching up with him, but then the symptoms worsened. Todd complained of chest pains, a discomfort that no one could ignore. Kandi, ever the rock in their relationship, knew something was wrong. The fear began to creep in, slowly at first and then all at once. The fun, carefree evening they had been having started to turn into something unrecognizable, something that neither of them had prepared for. It wasn't long before Kandi began to panic. She tried to calm herself down, telling herself that it might just be a passing moment, that Todd would feel better soon. But as time passed, his condition didn't improve. In fact, it worsened. Todd, who had been a pillar of strength for Kandi through everything, now looked vulnerable, something she had never seen before. His face, once filled with excitement and energy, now carried the weight of distress. The overwhelming sense of fear that took over Kandi was palpable, and for the first time that night, she didn't know what to do. They were in a public place, but this was no ordinary discomfort. The chest pains were a real concern, a symptom that nobody wants to hear. Kandi's mind raced as she quickly made a decision that would change the course of their evening. There was no hesitation. There was no waiting for the discomfort to pass. Todd needed help, and fast. They had to leave, and they had to leave now. No more Broadway show, no more smiling for the cameras. It was time for action. They rushed out of the theater and made their way to the nearest hospital. The trip was a blur, a rush of lights and voices, all drowned out by the rising anxiety that gripped Kandi's heart. In the back of her mind, she couldn't help but think the worst. What if Todd was having a heart attack? What if it was something even worse? Their perfect evening had quickly turned into something unrecognizable, something terrifying. With every second that passed, Kandi's sense of helplessness grew stronger. Was Todd going to be okay? Would their lives change in an instant? The hospital visit was filled with a mix of dread and hope. Kandi held on to Todd's hand tightly, offering what little comfort she could, while her mind raced with worries she couldn't shake. The doctors were quick to assess the situation, running tests and monitoring Todd's condition closely. Time seemed to stand still. In the back of her mind, Kandi kept thinking about how quickly everything had changed. Just hours ago, they were enjoying the theater, and now they were in a hospital room, hoping and praying that the worst didn't happen. What made this moment even more challenging was the uncertainty. Neither of them knew exactly what was going on. They were both in the dark, One moment they were living their lives, and the next, their world had been turned upside down. It was a sobering reminder of how fragile life really is. You can never know when things will take an unexpected turn. But there was one thing Kandi was certain of. She couldn't lose Todd. Not now. Not after everything they had been through. Not after building the life they shared. In those moments, as Todd lay there hooked up to the machines, Kandi felt every bit of fear and panic surge through her. She couldn't help but think of the unimaginable. What if something went wrong? What if this wasn't just a scare, but the start of something far worse? Kandi's mind kept racing, but there was no time to dwell on the what-ifs. The doctors were doing their job, and there was nothing more they could do but wait. As the minutes stretched into what felt like hours, Kandi reflected on how quickly things could change. From the moment they entered the theater to now, everything had shifted in the blink of an eye. The night that was meant to be full of love and laughter had turned into something they both feared they couldn't control. The night was dragging on, and Kandi's heart was still racing as she waited for any kind of reassurance from the doctors. Todd was still in that hospital bed, hooked up to all kinds of machines, and the waiting felt unbearable. The seconds stretched into what seemed like hours. She couldn't shake the fear that had settled deep inside her. It wasn't just the unknown. That was terrifying. It was the very real possibility that Todd, the man who had been her rock through everything, might be facing something far worse than they had ever imagined. Kandi's mind raced through all the scenarios: heart attack, stroke, or worse. She knew that the symptoms Todd was displaying could be signs of something truly serious. Yet even as the doctors worked on Todd, the fear didn't subside. In fact, it seemed to grow with every passing minute. Each beep of the monitor, each movement of the medical staff seemed to heighten Kandi's anxiety. Her thoughts spiraled into a whirlwind of panic. What if it was too late? What if Todd didn't make it through? You won't believe what happened next, though. Just when it felt like things couldn't get any worse, the doctors came in to deliver some unexpected news. The tests had been completed and Todd's heart was fine. No heart attack, no stroke, no immediate danger. The relief was instant, but there was a catch. The scare wasn't over just yet. Kandi stood there processing the news, and yet something inside her remained unsettled. She had never felt so helpless in her life. It wasn't just about Todd's health at that moment. It was about the fear of losing him. The fear that life, as she knew it, could change forever. The scariest part wasn't just the hospital visit, but the realization that life could go from perfect to terrifying in a heartbeat. She felt that deep in her bones, the sudden sharp awareness that no matter how much success or happiness you have, nothing is promised. But this is where it gets interesting. After all the tests, Todd was given a clean bill of health. Doctors reassured Kandi that his symptoms weren't linked to a heart attack or stroke, but something else entirely, a panic attack, likely brought on by stress. But in the moment, no one could have known for sure. That was the terrifying part. The unknown. Kandi couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. They had gone from the most exciting night out to the most terrifying experience in a matter of hours. It was as if everything they had been looking forward to had been stolen from them in an instant. But now, as Todd slowly started to recover, Kandi tried to make sense of the roller coaster of emotions she had experienced. The doctors reassured them that it wasn't anything life-threatening. But even as they left the hospital, the experience haunted Kandi. She found herself reflecting on how fragile life truly is. One minute you're enjoying a Broadway show, and the next you're fearing for the health of the person you love most in this world. The night had changed them both, and it wasn't something either of them could just brush off. The fear lingered even though Todd was okay. It was a wake-up call. Kandi realized, maybe for the first time in her life, that no matter how much she juggled, work, family, personal life, nothing was more important than health. It didn't matter how many successful businesses or beautiful moments you had. Nothing could replace your health or the health of those you love. And this is where the twist comes. After everything, after all the worry and panic, Kandi shared something deeply personal with her followers. She opened up about how terrified she had been and how much she had taken Todd's health for granted. It wasn't just about the scare. It was about the life lesson it taught her. You see, this wasn't just about a night gone wrong. It was a reminder to everyone, including Kandi, that health is fragile and we need to listen to our bodies no matter how busy life gets. For Kandi, this moment was a turning point, an eye-opener that health should always be the top priority. Her message was clear. Take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and never ignore the warning signs. Health isn't something you can put on hold no matter how successful or busy you are. And the craziest part? This experience not only impacted Kandi and Todd, but resonated deeply with her fans, who flooded her social media with messages of support. Many shared their own health struggles, connecting with Kandi's vulnerability and honesty in the face of fear. It wasn't just a health scare for Todd. It was a wake-up call for everyone who saw Kandi's post. The next few days were a blur for Kandi and Todd. Though Todd had been given a clean bill of health, the emotional toll of the experience didn't fade right away. For Kandi, it was as if everything had shifted in an instant. She couldn't help but reflect on how much her life had changed over the course of just a few hours. From carefree joy to fear of losing Todd, to finally finding relief. And as the days passed, she couldn't ignore the fact that this experience had shaken them both in ways they hadn't fully realized until now. They returned to their hectic lives, juggling business ventures, public appearances, and family obligations. But something had changed. It wasn't just the relief that Todd was okay, but a deeper sense of awareness that they both carried with them. Kandi couldn't shake the thought of how close they had come to losing everything in a matter of moments. That night out on Broadway, which had started as a celebration of their relationship, had turned into a reminder of how fragile life can be. Todd was okay now, but that brush with mortality made Kandi appreciate him, their life together, and the time they shared in a way she never had before. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. Kandi's vulnerability in sharing this experience with her fans had a profound impact. She had always been a strong, confident figure, someone who seemed to have it all together. But this was different. By opening up about her fears, her panic, and the emotional weight of the night, she connected with her audience on a deeper level. The responses she received were overwhelming. Fans, friends, and even strangers shared their own stories of health scares, reminding her that everyone, no matter their status, wealth, or success, faces challenges and uncertainties. In a way, this incident became a reminder of something important. No one is immune to life's curveballs. Even those who seem invincible are vulnerable. Todd's scare reminded Kandi that health isn't something to be taken for granted. Despite their busy lives, their fame, and their wealth, nothing mattered more than being there for each other and taking care of themselves. In that moment, everything else, the businesses, the fame, the constant hustle, felt less important than the simple act of appreciating the life they had and the time they shared. It wasn't just about Todd's recovery. It was about how their relationship had deepened in the face of fear. They had already been through a lot together, personal and professional ups and downs, but this was different. Kandi had to face the possibility of losing Todd even for a moment, and it hit her harder than she ever expected. That fear, that raw emotion, made her realize how much she valued their life together. She shared these reflections with her followers, using her platform to remind everyone to cherish their loved ones and not to take their health for granted. But the most interesting part of all of this was how Kandi's post served as a wake-up call, not just for her, but for everyone who read it. Fans flooded the comments, expressing how much they connected with her story. Many of them had faced similar health challenges or had experienced moments of fear and uncertainty. In some ways, Kandi's vulnerability had sparked a movement, reminding everyone that health should always be a priority, no matter how busy or successful you are. It wasn't just about Todd's recovery. It was about the collective realization that we all need to take a step back sometimes and appreciate the things that truly matter. This experience also pushed Kandi to take a closer look at her own life. She had always been driven, focused on her career, her businesses, and her family. But now she realized how important it was to slow down and take better care of herself. The frantic pace of her life had always been something she was proud of, but this health scare reminded her that even the strongest need to prioritize their well-being. It wasn't just about being there for Todd. It was about being there for herself, too. In the days after the scare, Todd's health continued to improve, and the couple found themselves reflecting on the lessons they had learned. They realized that life could change in the blink of an eye, and they didn't want to take their time together for granted. They had been through so much, and yet this health scare had shown them just how important it was to stop and appreciate the moments they shared. It wasn't just about running from one meeting to the next or checking off a to-do list. It was about being present, enjoying the little moments, and being grateful for every day they had. And here's where the real message comes in. Even though Todd had recovered, this experience left a lasting impression on both of them. It was a stark reminder of how unpredictable life is. You can't plan for every twist and turn. Sometimes you just have to take a moment to reflect, to appreciate, and to remind yourself that nothing is guaranteed. Kandi's openness about the experience, about her fear, her vulnerability, and her gratitude resonated deeply with her followers. They were reminded, just as she had been, that life is fragile and that nothing is more important than health and the people you love. It was a moment of clarity, one that shifted her perspective and deepened her connection to her fans and her family. Kandi and Todd began to feel a sense of normally returning to their lives, but the weight of what had happened still lingered in the back of their minds. Despite the relief that Todd was okay, the emotional aftermath of the scare had left its mark on both of them. Kandi found herself reflecting on how quickly their lives had been flipped upside down. One minute they were enjoying a carefree evening out, and the next they were in a hospital room, uncertain of what was going to happen. That contrast, the joy of the night versus the fear of losing Todd, had been jarring. But this is where things took a turn that nobody could have expected. The experience became a moment of transformation for both Kandi and Todd. They began to take a step back, reassessing their priorities in life. It wasn't just about the businesses, the fame, or the public image they worked so hard to maintain. It was about appreciating what they had, each other, their health, and the time they had together. The scare, as terrifying as it had been, had opened their eyes to something far more important than anything else in their lives, the fragility of life itself. Kandi took to Instagram once again, this time sharing a message of gratitude and reflection. It wasn't just about Todd's recovery. It was about the lesson they had both learned. She reminded her followers that health is something we often take for granted, and we shouldn't wait for a scare to appreciate it. The experience had brought them closer, not just as a couple, but as individuals who now understood that nothing should be taken for granted. Life can change in an instant, and the only thing that truly matters in those moments is the people you love and your well-being. The response from Kandi's fans was overwhelming. People thanked her for being so open, for sharing her vulnerability, and for reminding them all of the importance of taking care of themselves. They too had been through health scares, and many of them shared.